or file. Good day. The purpose of this tutorial is to help you interactively work through Lesson 2 as found in the Adobe GoLive CS2 Classroom in a Book textbook. Lesson 2 technically starts on page 72, and as you flip through pages 73, 74, 75, it gives you some idea of what sorts of things we will be looking at. The actual lesson starts on page 76, and it starts with creating a new blank site. So let's start with that. I already have my Adobe GoLive open, and I am going to then begin by creating a new site. Go to File on the menu, go to New, and it brings us to some options. We're not interested in making a web page at this point in time. We're actually starting a new website. So we'll go to the site area. We'll go to create a site, and we'll make a new blank site, and we'll go next. Step 5 says to call the file alumni. And then I am going to save it to my BTX 4C folder on my H drive. So I made a new folder calling it Lesson 2. We'll put it in that folder. Click Next, and we won't use version control. And we'll pick to specify our server later. And that would be where you would specify where your web page was actually being stored on the internet if it was published on the internet. And we'll go Finish. And we can see it's creating new site, saving site, and done a bunch of things here. There we go. So we have a new website. If I was to go to that website using Windows Explorer, so Windows button on the keyboard and E. Windows button on the keyboard and E gives me Windows Explorer. I'll navigate to my H drive, and I'll go to that Lesson 2 folder, and there's my alumni site that I just created. And notice that Adobe GoLive has created a bunch of things just from those first few steps that we took. If you look on page 77 in your textbook, you'll see that there's a behind the scenes title there. And there's our site file. That's the one we're going to click to open our websites in the future, and it'll bring up, start up GoLive and actually open up our website. There's a backup. Something should go wrong. There's a web content folder, and that's going to hold all the files and cascading style sheets for our web page. And you can see there's index.html. We saw that one a little bit ago. And there's also, if we move back, there's a web data here, and that's where some of the extra things are going to be stored, like our components and a few other things that we're going to see later on. If you want to read a little bit more on what the please feel free to read through pages 78 and 79 to find out what the extras contained in the web data folder really are. And then lastly, we've got web settings, and that is the settings that we would have set perhaps for like specifying the web server. I'm going to close out my Windows Explorer, and we'll go back to our alumni site in GoLive. My alumni site is still open. I am looking at page 82 in the textbook, and step number 2 tells me to go to the File on the menu and go to New. At this time, instead of being in Site, we're going to be on Web, Web Pages, HTML page, and click OK. And a new page has appeared. We are told to, or instructed to type in homecoming information coming soon, and we are going to center that by clicking on the Align Center button in the main bar. Next step, there's a little arrow that's referred to in step 5. Click the arrow to the left of head, and there's the external CSS button that they're talking about in step number 6. We're going to double click it, and it opens cascading style sheet basic area. It wants us to go to the body section, so we'll click that, and then it wants us to go to the font property side. That's step 8. Step 8, go to the font properties. Step 9, type in 14 pixel in the text field and press enter. And step 10 says to go to new font family in the bottom. Click and hold and select Helvetica Set. And then we're going to click to close the cascading style sheet, and we'll click yes to save the changes, and we'll leave this open for the next piece of the lesson. To save the file, go to File in the File menu, choose Save, type in Homecoming, and put the file in the root folder. And go save. Do we want to set a new title? Step 4 says Vertex U Homecoming. We'll set it, and we'll close the page. The next part gives us a couple of areas we can put in some options. I want to point out to you that you're looking at the web content folder that you were looking at in Windows Explorer. And we're going to be pulling in some files and some folders for this site. Go to File, Import, Files to Site. We're going to go to the U drive, Adobe CIB, Go Live, Lessons 2, put the Add to Blank, and you might as well shift click both of these and pick up Gathering and the banner and go Open and update the file. And that's basically going to tie that gathering page to the cascading style sheet that we made earlier to set the font on it. We're going to leave this thing open. I'd like to point out that we could have added the banner and the web page to our site using Windows Explorer. If I was to navigate to the web content folder in Go Live, so there we go. I could have picked up these two folders, shift clicked them, copied them, and then gone over into my H drive and BTX4C, my alumni site, my web content folder, and right clicked and pasted them in. Now, I'm not going to actually complete this, but that's basically how you would do it. The next section in here in your textbook, starting on page 87, talks about using Adobe Photoshop to manipulate a picture and get it ready for a web page. I would strongly suggest that these things might be done in a way before you really start working your web page, so that you've got your supply of pictures, or someone has a supply of pictures set up to work with. and that way you don't have to jump in and out of Adobe programs, but you can. So Adobe Photoshop, opening that one up, and it's asking me to go to the In Charge folder on the U drive. It's going to the U drive, open, computer, U drive, Adobe CIB, go live, lessons 2, In Charge, and open. Go to image size 125. Resample. Okay. We use the unsharp mask, filter, sharpen, unsharp. Apparently we want some pretty strong. Step 5 on page 88 gives the settings for unsharp mask. Amount 200, radius 1.0, threshold 10. Set up there, and then the last step, file save for web. Step 6 says to click on the 2-up tab to compare your images, and it's going to save as a JPEG. We'll save it as a JPEG and medium, and somewhere on the top here we should have save. And I want to put that one into my web content folder on my alumni site. And there we have that. And I am going to close this particular thing. No, I won't save the changes. And there's my In Charge JPEG that I just saved into this folder. We have reached page 89 in our Adobe Go Live CS2 Classroom in a Book textbook. Our section here is about creating site colors. The intention is to keep your site consistent by using a standard set of colors for all your pages, and that way as users browse through your website it won't look like they are heading onto somebody else's or a different website. And the first set of instructions happens in the second paragraph there, and it says to open the file gathering.html by double clicking it. And you'll notice that there is a light blue color here that we would like to get. So we're going to go to the site window. We are going to go into the Colors tab. We're going to go to Site and Update and Add Used and Colors. And that should scan through the colors in our site. You'll notice that contrary to what the textbook states, that it doesn't pick up that gray color, that untitled color that we can see in step number 3. So what we need to do is to close our gathering page and go to the Colors tab, right click and pick Get Colors Used, and there we will have that untitled color, and then we can carry on. And in the Inspector tab, if you like, you can call it the Corporate Blue as suggested. Now, our next step on page 90 is adding our own site colors. So we're going to go to Site, we're going to go to New and Color. There is the swatches window, and we'll pick this area here, that palette menu. We'll open the swatch library and find web named colors. Change it to list view, so that'll be this palette menu again, and we'll go to list view, and we want to find silver. As you noticed, when we picked or clicked on silver, it showed up in our scanned colors area here. If you click on the color and you go to your inspector tab, you can change that one to corporate silver as suggested. I'm going to close this palette, and I'm going to go to my Files tab, and I'm going to open the index.html page as suggested on bottom of page 91. Double click index.html and we get a blank page. Up in the top here, there's a title here, and this was going to get changed to being goliveL2 alumni. Your objects palette is over on the side here. We're going to change to CSS mode, and we're going to find the simple padded box, which is there, and drag and drop it. And I'm going to find the fixed left, 2 columns fixed left, drag and drop that onto our page. And we're going to go to the site. We're going to find the file called banner.gif, and we're going to drag and drop it from our site content into the top end of our page. Notice that if you have things set up correctly, you can put a lot of things together on a page by drag and drop. In the second area here, we're going to come into our page now, and I'm going to use a standard editing tool. I'm going to click in my left column, and I'm going to type in goliveL2 home, homecoming, and this information is on page 94, step 9, and send us an email. There's my Windows Inspector, which is open. I'm going to select the word homecoming, go to my Windows Inspector, and fetch URL, and go to my site tab button up here, and then go down to my homecoming page and release it. That creates a link on our page. At this point, we'll save and close this web page, and we're done the things I wanted to show you from lesson 2.